The affair is over now until season 2. Now I can kind of understand why people like soap operas. Yeah, there's always cliffhangers, but you don't have to wait months to find out what happens next. The first 10 minutes or so of this episode is just like a music video of Noah's life. He goes back to the pool and sees that same girl from the first episode, and then he decides to do recreational activities with her, if you know what I mean. Noah finds other women for recreational time, including a teacher, and he gets caught and sent to teacher detention. And then he meets a friend there, and not that it matters, but does anyone else think that's Eldon from The Cosby Show? Is it? And this is where we learn that people who make perpetually bad choices often end up on top. Noah takes this time of just sitting in a room to actually finish his book, and what happens? He writes a bestseller, and he gets paid while doing it. Harry buys the book right away and then talks to Noah about his marriage, and Noah lets him know that him and Helen are now separated. And Harry asks him, "Do you miss your wife?" And Noah says, "Not yet." And Noah goes back home and finds out that Helen's been keeping tabs on him. Well, not really, it was Helen's mother. As they keep talking, he finds out that Helen wants him back, so he does her too. Helen and Noah have lots of things to talk about because Helen has now found out that Whitney was actually doing Scotty all summer. Helen and her mom went to press statutory rape charges and Noah isn't sure. In the meantime, Whitney goes back to the Lockhart Ranch to warn Scotty. So of course, Noah and Helen drive over to Montauk to find Whitney, and Helen says something profound. "I was so afraid of marrying my father, I never realized I was marrying my mother." Oh, that's a burn. Alison. Alison is alone with Athena and her boy toy at the yoga ranch, but decides she's been there long enough and heads home to Cole. It could have been when Athena's boyfriend says to Alison that she should try celibacy as a palate cleanser between relationships. Yep, that would do it. She shows up at Phoebe's for a girls' night but runs into her sister-in-law, and she finds out that the Lockharts have lost the ranch. Then she goes home to her beach house and finds Cole, who is just heartbroken. He's heartbroken because he just loves her. But she can't be with Cole because when she looks at him, she sees Gabriel. She says she doesn't want to forget Gabriel, she wants to forget Cole. And now for one major he said, she said. In Noah's telling of the story, they show up at the Lockhart Ranch and find Whitney, and she's sitting there with Mrs. Lockhart. Mrs. Lockhart and the Solloways have a long conversation, but basically she talks some sense into them and they just leave. But as Noah's walking out the door, down walks Scotty and says, "Did you get rid of him?" And Noah loses his mind, which most of us are kind of not surprised about. However, Cole stops him from killing him right there in the front yard with a gun. Alison says that they're all in the Lockhart kitchen having a conversation about what to do and should they press charges against Scotty, but then Cole comes in with a gun and she says, "What are you going to do with that?" And he says, "I'm not sure," but then he just starts pointing it at people. Then he points it at Alison, and then he says, "I'm just gonna kill myself." Points it in his own head. And when Helen and Whitney are getting ready to leave, Helen says, "Come on, Noah." And he doesn't. He stays there with Alison. Now a word about this investigator. He obviously is after Noah Soloway. Noah thinks he's handled everything okay with the mechanic, and then it turns out that the investigator had bugged the mechanic. I think the investigator is going to be an even bigger storyline next season. We fast forward to Alison and Noah alone in their fancy house with their little girl. Everything with his book is going so great. He's even interviewing actors for the upcoming movie. And then there's a knock on the door, and it's the investigator. And he's got cops, and they take Noah away. And then that's it. That's the end. So now we're left wondering until I don't know when to find out what happens next.